OK, we need to move on because Afghanistan, there'll be a debate on Afghanistan during the week. The Age this morning had an interesting spread on page 1 where they went to some of the families of those who have been killed in Afghanistan. The mixed reactions really, but I think the sentiment that best sums it up is that they say, well, if we were to move out now, if we were to give it all away, it'd be a betrayal of their loved ones and a waste of their sons' lives. The only voices against the war, Gerard, you would think, during the week will come from the Greens and perhaps Andrew Wilkie.
Yes, and there may be a couple of people in the Labor Party and perhaps one in the Liberal Party, but it'll essentially be the Greens and Andrew Wilkie. And bear in mind, in the last election, of the people who voted, 80% supported the government or the opposition, and Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott were fairly resolute that Australia's commitment in Afghanistan should remain for the medium term at least.
So where there is a fair bit of heat in the debate is over the criticism of the fact that these 3 soldiers have been charged over the killing of civilians. Let's hear from Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard.
The last thing that people would want to see is soldiers being stabbed in the back by their own government. Has this government given these soldiers the defence they deserve? Because they can't be thrown to the wolves, which is what I think a lot of people fear, that these people who've been doing the right thing by Australia, these soldiers who've been doing the right thing by Australia, are being thrown to the wolves by government.
Unfortunately, Mr Abbott does not understand the facts of this matter. Mr Abbott seems to believe that the government can make representations in this process. That is simply not true. And anyone who had bothered to get themselves briefed as to the facts would have known that wasn't true.
Who's winning that argument?
Well, I don't think Tony Abbott at the moment, because again, the problem of wild exaggeration. Stab in the back. This is how prosecutions work. There's an inquiry. Then a prosecuting authority considers whether or not to lay charges. Charges are laid, and then everybody is lawyered up for the fight ahead. Now, these people, as I understand it, have not been given lawyers already, but once they've been charged, they will be. In civilian as in military prosecutions, it's exactly the same. To call it stab in the back is really outrageous of Abbott, and I think it's widely seen to be outrageous. Not many defenders there for him.
Tony Abbott said, I think some people are saying it's a stab in the back. I mean, there was a slight kind of, and not very effective caveat implicit in that. But I wonder, I mean, he was at that stage under heavy artillery fire from his own side. He had an interview going with Alan Jones, and Alan Jones repeatedly during this interview, which is really worth reading or listening to again.
We'll come to that.
Repeatedly invites him to effectively dismantle the entire military justice system by having the Parliament intervene in this process. And I think every principle of the separation of powers militates against that, whatever your opinion of the prosecution. I do think that Brigadier Lynn McDade has had her qualifications questioned more robustly than I suspect would be the case if she wasn't a woman.
But I think in the general community there's some support for Tony Abbott's position. I think he does exaggerate, but there's some support for it. But going back to David's point, I mean, this is one of the troubles, and it's a problem in this case as well. This case took a year and a half to get to where we now are. We have a situation where prosecutions at the federal level, the military level, the state level, and generally in the public service take an enormous amount of time to make decisions which in other institutions would be made very quickly, and I think it's the delay in this case which has caused a lot of the troubles.
Yes. OK, look, we're fast running out of time, but I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One was some of Tony Abbott's best work in Afghanistan hit the cutting room floor and we never did see it. One of them was when he told them, I couldn't even win an election, so I don't know how much else help I would be in a firefight. Yes. And for whatever reason, that did not make it back here.
Well, it made it in the transcript, but not in the... it joined the pictures of him letting off rounds of heavy artillery on the cutting room floor.
It's very charming, really.
And the other interesting contribution from Christopher Pyne, who was deflecting all of the heat that Tony Abbott's taken over the jet lag thing, and, well, he explains what went wrong.
That was the first thing that he could think of, because he wasn't entitled to say that he was travelling to Afghanistan within a week of her visit for security reasons. She was basically tying both hands and feet behind his back and then thumping him in a chair.
So when the truth is inadmissible, you're entitled to say the first thing that pops into your head. I think that's basically the argument. Now, you mentioned Alan Jones before, and interesting question as to whether Alan Jones actually helps or hinders the development of Tony Abbott, or whether he's simply leading him astray. Here's part of it.
I know it's a big burden to place upon you, but for many out there, you're the hope of the side.
Well, thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. And, you know, one of the things which so disappoints me about the election result is that I am the standard bearer for values and ideals which matter and which are important. And I guess as the opposition leader, as the leader of the coalition, a lot of people, millions and millions of people, invest their hopes in me. And it's very important that I don't let them down.
Is this now time to go for the jugular and the groin?
Well, it's time to hold the government properly to account.
You've got to be careful, or you could be led into unelectable territory.
You've got to give points to Tony Abbott for keeping a straight face when he's being urged by Alan Jones to go for Julia Gillard's testicles. I mean, he really managed, I thought, to smother that one quite nicely. But, you know, I don't think people ever really like to hear politicians talking about themselves and, you know, I've been done over. And I think that was the main problem with this bizarre, stupid back and forth on the Afghanistan, you know, who's going and who's staying and who's visiting the troops. It's just, you know, all this Machiavellian bastardry or whatever. Nobody really wants to hear politicians moaning in public about how they've been
worked fabulously.
gutted.
It worked fabulously to deflect attention from Joe Hockey's lies about the auditing of the...
The journalist spent a year giving Tony Abbott lectures, and he didn't need them, and he did OK without the advice. So.
OK, more with our panel shortly. Annabelle Crabb, David Marr and Jared Henderson, but now here's Mike Bowes and Talking Pictures.